Alrighty then. So, onward to the current excitement. And I'm doing this live because I've been having conversations back and forth, or all these comments back and forth, with who's ever running the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum Facebook group. There we go. Got it right. And here, I'm just going to say the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum came on my record, or came within my eyesight over the weekend. Somebody pointed out, sent me a pic of a leatherette covered book, which was the AD&D Players Handbooks. So I looked at it and I went, what the heck is this? And it looked like somebody was republishing the Player's Handbook, first edition, Oriental Adventures, and Unearthed Arcana as a singular volume. And then I look closer, and it's like, all right, it looks interesting. Player's Handbook, Unearthed Arcana, Oriental Adventures, compiled information for players and dungeon masters, DHS Dungeon Hobby Shop, Player's Handbooks, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but it's not using the ampersand A. It's not using the ampersand A. You're assuming that it's probably not licensed. And did further reading on their Facebook group site, and lo and behold, they're actually taking beat-up copies of the Player's Handbook, Unearthed Arcana, and Oriental Adventures, debinding them, rebinding them with a leatherette cover. They expect to start selling them sometime around Gary Con. Great, God bless it. I don't know if there is a market for that. I have no clue. But then earlier today, somebody sends me a link to their latest comment over on Facebook. And I was like, okay, what's up with that? And it's a picture of classic, or a bunch of pictures of the classic TSR logos, you know, the one with the wizard is a half moon, with TSR, the game wizard. And then you get the TSR logo that's now become like the OSR logo, right? And you got the one that looks like it could be an embossed stamp, and then you got the wizard. And the initial post was, would like to announce that TSR has been successfully resurrected. Anyone that is a OSR game designer or fantasy book publisher that would like to be licensed to use any of these 5 trademarks, feel free to contact us. All right. So with TSR, I think, as many of us gamers know, many of us active in the hobby right now know, that TSR is owned, the TSR is a registered trademark of the what we colloquially call the new TSR, the publishers of the New World Order Top Secret. Okay. And how did that happen? Well, because Wizards of the Coast apparently let it lapse. And I guess back in 2011 or so, James Carpio realized, hey, well, no, not James Carpio, Jason Elliott. Sorry. I get my new TSR luminaries confused sometimes. So Jason realized it hadn't been registered. The registration had lapsed. It was abandoned. So he grabs it and picks it up. And then the history going on from there is that TSR said, hey, with the new TSR, let's put out a gaming magazine. Let's make it look like the classic Dragon magazine, which TSR was, Wizards of the Coast is no longer publishing. So TSR is coming up with Gygax magazine. Gail Gygax says, hey, I have the trademark for Gygax in gaming. And she sued, or had a legal action. So somebody wants to say I suck. You just did, so good job. Now, that legal action, it wasn't a lawsuit according to Gail, was settled out of court, but it was over the trademark. Gail had the federal trademark for Gygax. Now, let's move on to the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum. Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum, both on their Facebook group page and on their website, the link actually is TSR Hobbies Museum. Okay, or tsrmuseum.com for the actual website. So obviously, when they formed this up, they said we're gonna be TSR, and then they couldn't. Why? Because the federal trademark is held already by another entity. So where do you go? Well, they went to the state and they said, we're going to register a state trademark. And that's fine and dandy. Here's the things, though, with a state trademark, from what I understand. It is superseded by the federal trademark. So you can certainly use it within the state of Wisconsin. But you would dilute the trademark that is federally owned if you use it outside the state. So, yes, the TSR Museum can be the TSR Museum if they want it to be. They have that. But to distribute trademarks, well, the visual trademarks, the copyrighted trademarks, is another question. There's a whole huge going back and forth. If you want, go to look up TSR Museum or Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum, probably Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum on Facebook. Look at today's post. Look at the comments. I have some comments going back and forth. But this is what it comes down to. Now the argument from the other side is like, well, I'm an armchair lawyer, and sure I am. Aren't we all to some extent in this hobby? But I've witnessed a lot of these disputes over the years. I'm a bit more wired in than the average Joe. And the Gygax legal action over the trademark, I was extremely wired into. And it cost, estimates that I've heard, 6 figures on either side to fight that one out. Okay? So we all know it was not a cheap battle. If you were going to say, well, we now own these 5 classic, iconic visual trademarks, right? The artistic trademarks. I believe, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I am, that the actual visual, the actual artistic trademarks, in this case, would be owned by Wizards of the Coast. Because although they let the actual trademark lapse for TSR, the copyrights go back. So I said, and prior to 1978, the copyright laws are different. So then they came back, when I say they, the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum on Facebook came back and said, well, yes, they are 4 out of 5 or whatever are from prior to 78. Okay. But if that's the case, and if they are out of copyright, then nobody has to license it from TSR. Yep, and on Facebook, yes, it is a basic booklet. And you know what? You can go to LegalZoom, and LegalZoom flat out says, here's the deal with state and federal trademarks. I'm Joe Schmo, and I want to register Joe Schmo as a trademark for my business here in New York State, and it's not used anywhere. It's not used federally, and it's not used in a state. I get it. Great. Now somebody comes up with the federal trademark. I don't have it federally. My state one stays, and it's still effective in New York State, but it's not effective outside the state, right? Because you have the federal one. But if the federal one exists before you register for a state one, and you try to use your trademark, especially outside the state, the federal trademark holder can claim that their trademark is being infringed upon, and therefore defend it. Now, I'll be honest with you. If you don't defend your trademark, when somebody who has a state trademark, and you have the federal one, if you don't defend it, then you are basically allowing your trademark to be abandoned, right? So you have to defend it. And I suspect that's what's going to happen with this. Have I spoken to anybody at the new TSR? I'm waiting for official comments on this. I probably, if it gets caught up in lawyers, I probably won't hear about it. I'll probably just get it's caught up in lawyers. But here's the simplest way to do it. If I was the mill order a hobby shop museum or the TSR museum as they registered their website as. So again, you know what their intention was. I would reach out to the new TSR, reach out and say, hey, listen, we would like to license these out, and don't license them out to publishers, license them out as tchotchkes. You want to do bumper stickers, you want to do key rings, you want to do things that you can sell at your museum. I think you could actually probably have a chance to get a license. Maybe, for the goodwill of the hobby, maybe thank you for respecting our trademark. Okay, yes. But like I said, the copyright is probably on that artwork is probably owned by Wizards of the Coast. So it's an attempt at a cash grab that if you are, and I don't think any major publisher would be interested in it, but if you are a small-time publisher and you go, oh, wow, cool, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't get yourself involved in what could be a costly legal battle that has nothing to do with you. Now, to move on from this, they also, and I was surprised to see this, they're going to be offering at their museum, they offer memberships, and it's $5 for the day, basically admission to the museum, and then you can get different size memberships. Copper is $50, $5 off gaming, free coffee. Silver is coffee and donuts or veggies, and $1 off admission, and $10 off gaming. So 10% off gaming, not $10. $10 might actually be substantial. So we're going to go on to pay to play here at this museum, and this is another thing which I wish them luck. All right, this is something that we could probably use. It's in Lake Geneva. I am sure it is going to be something that gamers would like to go to and would like to experience. But to pay to play, anyone can run a game in the Dungeon Hobby Shop. You will be ranked by the staff, recorded into the master rolls. Once ready, the Dungeon Master may choose to lower a rating due to duration or content of the game. Appointments must also be made in advance. All right, so you want to run a game at the Dungeon Hobby Shop with a common Dungeon Master. Now, I guess the Dungeon Master gets to run it for free, I'm assuming. But players at your table for a common Dungeon Master are $50 a head. Not $50 for the table, which I could almost give you for. Okay, I can understand. That's probably what places like, I don't know, the Brooklyn Strat might charge, something like that. I haven't been to there in years. Uncommon Dungeon Master are $100 a person, not per table. A rare Dungeon Master is $250 a person. Very rare is $500 a person to sit at your table for a couple of hours and play a game. Now, however, though, on the very rare, there's a 15% commission given to the DM. At Unique, it's $750 a player and a 20% commission to the DM. And 1,000, it is a 25% commission for the Legendary Dungeon Master to the DM. And Dungeon Masters are paid otherwise 10%. So you have a 10% commission at your table, and the rest of it goes to the museum. I think and I don't know how the museum is running. They don't seem to have a web store. You can buy gift cards. I would highly suggest that you focus at the museum, because you know what, if Ernie or James Ward is running a game, I'm sure there are people that will be excited to, if they're in town, to come and play at the game. But you're not going to have a viable business charging that much per player in this industry. I just don't see it. I just don't. But again, apparently there are further updates on this. I don't know, but going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Yes, I am not a lawyer, which is why I suggested to the person that was responding to me for the Dungeon Millet or Hobby Shop or the TSR Museum, I suggested that they get legal advice, that they consult with a lawyer, because especially if they tried to, all right, let's just say they are correct that they have the state trademark and they can license out these iconic images of the TSR logos. The moment it's used outside the state, you have now definitely violated, and outside the state of Wisconsin, you have now definitely violated the trademark of the new TSR, who will now have to defend it. And I would advise, because again, shit like this gets expensive fast, I would advise both parties to handle this before the lawyers need to get involved. I think that, and I know, and I've been guilty of this too, you get involved in something and this is what we're doing, and somebody's telling you that you're doing it wrong, and fuck you, I know what I'm doing, I'm not doing it wrong. And they point out stuff like, well, listen, federal trademarks, Trump, and people get, oh, and I understand that. Take a moment and step back, because it could be a very costly mistake otherwise. And nobody needs a costly mistake. Well, like I said on the Tavern Chat podcast, where I first covered this, I would probably follow up on the Facebook Live, in which case I actually have done that, correct? Yes, I have. And I will put up a post at tenkarstavern.com later on today, summarizing with screenshots, because we all know that things get deleted on Facebook, but or elsewhere, and there will be a summary of it. If I hear more of what's going on, if I get an official comment from what I shall call the new TSR, I'll certainly share it. In the meantime, folks, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Subscribe, join the channel. I would really appreciate it. The more people who have subscribed to the channel, the greater reach we will have. And, we're like the board, right? Come on. Tavern, let's have the tavern everywhere. All right, folks. Thank you very much. I'm out of here.